Heyo, my name is Ori, and today I want to discuss a game I'm working on called Darkness, and where progress is at the moment. It's a smaller game that I'm trying to work on that just involves some basic platforming with roguelike elements. I want to make this devlog to just track my progress and hopefully actually get something finished. I also want to talk about what inspired me to make this game and some concepts I threw at the wall with my friends. So, without further ado, let's just get right into it. So a while ago, I was working on a project with my girlfriend, and while working on it, I quickly came to the realization that the scope was far too big. I quickly decided to move towards making another game, which some of you might already have seen on this channel, called Untitled Gun Game. After working on that as well, it was becoming clear that I'm having a lot of issues. Now, I still want to work on Gun Game, but a lot of the issues I've been facing come from a lack of experience. I've only been making games for about a year and a half, so there's still a lot I don't know. And after working on a couple games, I finally identified the problem as scope creep. Now, I love making games, so sometimes while designing something, I want to constantly add new content. And while this sounds cool in practice, it means making games that can go from something very simple to a monstrous task of stacked ideas. This is something I do in a lot of my projects, so I decided it was time to fix it. I started by laying out a list of things I wanted my game to be. It's going to be a very simple platformer in a 1-bit style, that way the art doesn't take too long, and to add a bit of depth, I'm going to add some enemies and a roguelike element. I also want you to be able to fight the enemies in multiple ways and some kind of randomized system for your weapon, hence the roguelike element. As for how I want people to play this game, availability has always been my top motto, so I plan on releasing it for free on itch and Newground. And if you want to support me, it'll be on Steam for $4 with some extra bonus content that I feel like working on. I know not a lot of people can spend money on games, so I thought $4 would be just enough to support, but not enough to break your pockets. This way, if you want to play it online, you can, but you can still support me and buy it on Steam, get achievements, and do all that. The extra content will probably be something like a hard mode, more achievements, and just general content that the game would like. With this basic list and rundown of the idea I want my game to be, it was time to start working on cleaning it up. So at the moment, the game is a roguelike platformer where you fight enemies, but the game needed something to give it a bit more. Since I personally have no idea when I'm overscoping ideas, I relied heavily on my friends telling me when something was too much. So after some healthy deliberation, we decided that the game will be a roguelike platformer where you escape darkness. The darkness mechanic will be a giant wall that chases you, and if you stay in it too long, you begin to lose your sanity. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the concept, so once the idea was made, I went straight into making the art. When I make video games, I like to start with the character first and build the world around them. So I began thinking about character designs. After some time, there's a couple lads I came up with, except this guy. Don't give him any attention, he thrives on it. I decided to go with this character because, look at him. He's awesome. While working on the lad, I also made sure he had a dark mode. I want to make it so that while the wall is consuming you, you're surrounded by darkness and you have a chance to make it out. I also gave him a little torch because in the intro sequence, he'll lose it and that's what makes the darkness chase him. With all this planned, I got to work on my favorite part, the tiles and UI elements. I designed a little title screen that looked nice, and to your left was a little town-like area that lets you check achievements, settings, credits, and general stats. I'm going to include a settings option in the pause menu as well, so you don't have to return to the main menu every time you want to adjust something, but for now, this works just fine. Now, on to the important part. Now, with any platformer, the movement is the most important part. I want the movement to feel great and responsive, so aside from basic up, down, left, right, I also want to include a dash and a wall jump, because you can start to do some crazy movement combos with it later. After a bit of time, I really want to add coyote time, but for now, this works just fine and feels very good. With the movement covered, I wanted to juice up the feeling a bit more, so I worked on a little squishy effect that happens when you jump and some particles that trail behind the player and the ground and walls. Coding this was actually pretty fun because I learned about a variable called mod, and what mod basically does is lets you activate a variable every other number, which, could have been useful for other projects, but oh well. After getting all that cleaned up, I made a pixelated room transition to mimic the depixelated effect that the Game Boy would have. This is so everything would blend into the tile set, which I began working on. Now, the tile set was the most fun to create because I get to think about how everything is going to blend together and how enemy movement work and stuff like that. I ended up making a lot of different tiles just to get a wide range of art, and even made this little level mock-up, which, I think looks great, and everything blends together pretty good. I started bringing my tile set into Game Maker and just making sure everything looked nice and pretty. Pretty much everything worked except this fucking waterfall thing. I don't know why this waterfall would not work, so whatever, I'll go back to it later. But this really started bringing everything together. After that, I worked on a pause menu that you can interact quickly, so you don't have to return to the menu. But besides all that, that's really all I have right now. I realized I didn't go over certain parts like the sound effects I was working on or the music, so I might cover that in another devlog. Although I think the next course of action should be level design and menu cleanup or enemy creation. If you have any recommendations on an enemy or a concept, let me know in the comments below because I always like hearing feedback and new ideas. And don't forget, you can join my Discord to share ideas and chat, and if you want to follow me on Twitter for updates every now and then, links are all in the description below. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.